and welcome to The Smoke Break. I'm your host, your old pal Zane, here with Zoe Schwartz.
Hello.
Taylor Barrett.
What's up?
And Ac Oneal.
What's going on?
Ac Oneal is a super funny Portland comic, and we are so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
That's very sweet of you. Thank you. It's very sweet of both of you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this week we wanted to talk a little bit about like self-doubt and like some of that negative self-talk. For me, I would say when it comes to like self-doubt, it's my brain is a bully, and it has all the trash on me.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
And I feel like the only thing that makes my bullies kind of bearable is that they don't know everything.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's very true. That's a very good point.
Bro, remember that one time?
Yeah. They only know the times they saw me mess up.
Right.
I know all of it.
Exactly. I was just thinking about that, like driving over here. I was like, it's hard for me to sometimes like accept compliments and like take credit for some of the good stuff that I've done, because I'm like, no, you weren't there when I bombed when I ate dog shit.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't know all of it. But yeah, dude, I totally get that.
So do you ever feel like your idea of yourself kind of stops you from seeing maybe the good that other people see in you?
For sure. Honestly, yeah.
Okay, how so?
I just kind of try to see myself in like I set a standard for myself, and I feel like a lot of times that I don't even accomplish it myself.
Sure.
So I think other people see that to my own standard, right?
Okay.
And so
maybe they think you're killing it, but you're like, by my standards, I don't think I am.
Exactly. Yeah. This very thing happened. I was we were headed out to Eugene, a couple of comics of me, and we were talking about a set that I did. You were there, McMinnville, and I ate some dog shit.
I had a bad set too. I felt like
no, see, I thought you had a great set. See,
good old self-doubt.
I thought you were great. But I was talking with them, and they were like, I was like, damn, that might have been one of like the worst bombs of my fucking like career.
I'm glad I was there for it then.
Yeah, dude. I remember.
I've only ever seen you do good, so
see, it doesn't ever happen. It doesn't always happen like that. And I remember seeing Jane Malone there, and I was doing an extra spicy joke.
Yeah.
And I hit a punchline, and she went, I was like, oh no.
That's so funny.
Really
but
funny.
I was telling the comic about it, and they're like, that's really the worst you've done?
Yeah.
Like for real? Like that's the worst you've done? And I was like, I mean, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And so like just kind of putting it in that kind of perspective is like, if that's really the worst, it's like it can't be that bad.
Yeah. No, I like that perspective. I recently had a set, so I did a show for like Telltale. And
I've done Telltale before.
Telltale's super dope, super
Awesome
love
show.
it. We did like a show where it was like all coworkers and stuff like that.
cool.
So it was like all people I knew. And I was like super excited for this show, but like I was also, like I've been experiencing psychosis a little bit. So like I was a little bit detached, but like usually I can just jump out of it and I'll be like, I'm on stage. You got it now. Just hold it together for fucking 10 minutes.
Imagine what it'd be like to be in psychosis. Like you just said that casually. yeah. I've just been in a little bit of a psychotic episode. This life is fine.
Just got on stage and told jokes, whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive that you can do that.
Well, we'll see. So I get up there and I start performing. And I didn't snap into it. And I was like, I felt like I was doing really bad. But like after I got off stage, everyone's like, oh, that was really good. That was really funny. Like there's people that like maybe didn't interact with me as much before that were like giving me hugs and giving me all this praise. But it was like because I had such a negative view of myself, I couldn't connect with their their love, their admiration, any of it.
It feels insincere. Like you're taking it as like, oh, they're just coddling me because they're like, oh, he did his best.
Yeah, exactly.
But it
like
could be they legitimately thought you were funny. Like
yeah.
Well, I feel like when you have such intense negative like self-talk and you're experiencing self-doubt, getting like praise and admiration will like really contradict that. So you're just like, oh no, that's bullshit, because I like thinking that like the self-doubt is real, and then thinking that the self-doubt is like the honest talk, hearing something that contradicts that just like feels wrong. You're just like, well, that's clearly bullshit, because like I know better than that.
No, and it feels weird when you're like confident that you didn't do well, and you're just like, you're bullshitting me. Yeah, it's a weird feeling. I've definitely been there before. But that is cool though, when you can like, it sucks when you can't get out of your head during a set, but it's cool that you felt that way, but then didn't come off that way.
Yeah,
I feel like usually if I'm in my head, I will like it will be less good, you know?
Yeah, like I didn't get off stage and they were like, "You were in a psychosis, weren't you?" That would have been bad.
They're like, "Were you dissociated that whole time?"
I was like, "None of this feels real."
You just see like hospital people showing up in the background.
Part of it. That sounds stressful.
I remember I had a joke bomb and I was like, "What is HR here?" And everybody laughed and I kept my job. It was great. But yeah, I feel like our view of ourselves has to be, you know, like you at least have to have like some kind of realistic view of yourself, you know, because it's like, and I feel like realistic goes for both negative and positive, you know, because it's like you just have to see yourself in the light that like that you're not perfect, but like you are trying, you know.
Right.
So I feel like, you know, with self-doubt, it's something that, you know, it takes time to cultivate, but it is worth that time.
That made me think of something that's not going to help any of our self-doubt, but it's interesting. It's like way back in the day when I took a psychology class when I first went to school, they said that like people with low self-esteem have more accurate self-perception and people with high self-esteem have more inaccurate self-perception. Yes. So I always think, I'm like, you know what? The fact that I'm down on myself means that I'm more self-aware than other people.
Yeah, that's true. But dude, I feel like at the same time,
it stings.
I know, right?
It hurts, bro. It hurts. And look how much further sometimes the people who are delusional and like,
the fake it till you make it shit.
Yeah, who don't have that self-actualization and can just push past their own.
Especially with comedy too, yeah.
Especially with
you're
comedy.
Like, damn, you're already doing all that shit. Like, or asking to be on all these shows, and I'm so weird about asking to be on shows.
Yeah,
dude,
and some people brand new, they're just like, "Can I be on your show? Can I be on your show?" And I'm like, oh. Not that they're bad, but it's just like it's taken me so long to get to the place where I feel like I deserve to ask.
Yeah,
that I'm like, you're already there. Fuck you. Like,
no, I totally
mean,
get that, and it's like I feel like it's kind of a thing in comedy too, where like your ego kind of gets into play. Like, oh, they should be asking me.
Yeah,
like I see the person who hosts this every week at this open mic. Are they not impressed with my comedic abilities?
With the 3 minutes I've been working on and haven't figured out?
Has my dick joke not impressed thee?
Nobody even told me. I think it's because like once you get to a certain level, that's more. Well, that's what I mean. Like for me, when I started, it was like nobody even told me I should be asking to get booked. And then I realized everybody was doing it, and I was like, what? And then these new people are doing it. Like boom. I mean, they should. Like they should. But I'm just like, I don't feel like that knowledge was out there when I first started. Like you should be asking.
Yeah.
I mean, I also think when you're new, you get booked a lot more because you're novel and like they want new people.
True,
you know?
Well, like I started off with a comic. We won't say his name, but he was in Iowa and he was very confident. Like I would go up, do a set and be like, I don't think I did that well. And then he would go up, do a set, not do well and be like, I fucking killed it.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, the energy. Yes, 100%. You killed the energy. Nobody enjoyed that.
Yeah, dude,
but confidence can make you funnier though. Like when I go up and I'm feeling myself, like I'm definitely funnier. You know what I mean? So I'm just in a mood where I feel more confident because then you lean into your jokes more and shit.
Definitely.
You can like set the tone with the audience a lot more. I really like what you said about being realistic too, because I think that it's wise to try to be realistic, but it has to go both ways. It has to be positive and negative. And I feel like a lot of times people attempting to be realistic end up falling further into being negative. When they're trying to be realistic and they're trying to think of something positive, they're like, okay, well, let's be realistic. It probably isn't that good. Or I probably don't have that much potential, or it probably can't be that successful. And then that just slowly like slopes them down into being negative.
Well, that's how low self-esteem probably negatively affects people, even though it is more accurate.
Right.
It's actually helpful to like boost yourself up and try to find the silver lining in a tough situation.
Definitely.
Right.
For your mental health. And
lie to
like,
yourself,
confidence.
maybe.
That's why I also really liked what you said about like, well, if that's the worst I've done, then it's not that fucking bad. You know what I mean? I think that's a really good perspective
I've had that
to have.
experience. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that like, you know, something that like I try to think of and I've brought up on this show a lot is just like, you never do as good or as bad as you think.
Yeah, that's totally accurate.
You know, because it's like, there's times where like, I've been like, dude, I fucking killed it and listened back and was like, I did okay.
Yeah.
And then there's times where I'm like, I fucking bombed that. And I'm like, I did pretty good.
That's pretty much how I always feel when I listen. And I have some sets recently that I used to listen to every single set, like right afterwards or whatever. I have so many that I haven't listened to recently.
I was always so bad about listening to my sets. So like first I would start like recording my sets, but then I would always forget my phone on the stage like every time.
Yeah, so you have an hour-long recording of people you don't give a fuck about.
And then or I would just forget to pause the recording
afterwards.
So it'd be
like the rest of everybody's sets recorded.
Yeah.
So
I did a really long set.
Right. But then I just kind of stopped doing it. But I agree that it definitely does help put yourself in perspective a little bit better.
Yeah.
So you think that like getting recordings and having those things that you can kind of more take like a step back from yourself and view yourself in that way helps?
Yeah, I definitely do. And especially like with comedy, you can kind of, you can count your laughs. You can like
Yeah.
see like, okay, I've done this many laughs. Like that's not bad, you know. For a 3-minute set, I got 47 laughs. That's however many laughs per minute, whatever.
That's a lot of laughs per minute.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that was arbitrary.
Is that a real number? Jesus.
No, I just throw shit out.
3 minutes, 47 laughs.
Yeah, in 3 minutes I did 167 laughs. That's a laugh a second.
How many fucking punchlines did you have?
I'm killing these girls.
They did not stop laughing. I didn't even talk the whole set. I just got up there. They started laughing for
I
full 3
showed
minutes.
up just in a Speedo, and they loved it.
And like I think that's cool because like it gives you the opportunity to like be a part of the audience too.
Yeah.
That's something
does
that you
give you
don't
a
get to
chance.
experience when you are on stage. You don't get to see yourself and like have an objective perspective on your performance and like counting your laughs is a really unique. I can't tell if that would be like rewarding or like disheartening or both or what.
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
A little bit of both. A little bit.
Honestly,
It's realistic.
That's fair.
It is realistic, dude. It is realistic.
I have an Excel sheet and I do a ratio. I'm just kidding.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I totally see you doing that too.
I have a Pythagorean theorem
I don't even have an
based
Excel
around
sheet.
the laughs. Yeah.
I'm like, who am I kidding? I don't
My
know. how to
genital jokes
work.
get 18 laughs per second.
You mean all
18
my
square
jokes?
times 3 minute ratio.
Exactly.
So like when it comes to like self-doubt and like negative self-talk, like what do you use to combat that?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Man, I just kind of like I use a lot of like I use it with my peers a lot, like you guys, just kind of taking your guys' feedback. You know, that really helps me. You know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but most people would say I'm a pretty funny comic, and so that kind of there's a lot of times I can rely on that. You know, like and then I try to remember the good times. That's really what really helps me, is just like thinking about the really good sets that I have, because comedy especially is such a roller coaster of emotions. Like you'll literally tell the same jokes and it'll crush. You're like, yeah, I'm the fucking man. Tell the second same jokes like a week later. Who knows what's happening? Like it could be, you know, you're just getting off work. I stubbed my fucking toe on the way in here. I did that, whatever, dude. And it could just completely be a different reaction. And so you really got to try to stay in the middle. You know, you got to try to not get too high, which is, you know,
hard.
It's hard, dude. I totally fail at it all the time, where I'm just like, oh, I fucking suck.
Yeah.
Or then I'll get off stage sometimes and be like, I'm the best motherfucking comedian that ever fucking stepped foot in the Portland comedy scene.
No,
These motherfuckers ain't got shit on me.
Right. And it's probably better to have more of like okay, like I'm good at this. Obviously, I've been doing it for a while. I get booked.
Yeah.
But like sometimes I have bad sets, sometimes I have good sets, and that's just how comedy is. But overall, like that, and like you were saying, like getting the evidence from your peers, but like the evidence is that you're actively doing this thing and getting booked on somewhat of a regular basis. Beyond that, like, but you see, I've seen, and then also like seeing other people.
It's
have
so
bad
much
sets.
harder to, once you've gotten those like really good sets, to eat shit.
Oh, yeah, it sucks.
Like it makes it taste so much worse. You're like, oh no, I know what the promised land is.
I think
I know.
I think it's probably like uniquely, I mean, I'm sure everybody who does any sort of like performing arts or whatever like feels that way, but I think comedy maybe like uniquely like keeps us humbled in a way, because even really good people, famous people bomb, you know what I mean? Like,
that's
Joe Coy bombed at the the Golden Globes.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And he's famous. Like,
he's famous. They picked his ass to do that shit.
Well, something I wanted to comment on was just like getting the validation from peers and stuff, because I think that's a really good idea. But like I was talking with somebody, I won't say who, it was probably Taylor. We were just talking. We were talking. I don't know. I was talking about like my inability to like to feel like I'm getting love, right? Like I feel like I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
And then I felt like I was getting it, but I couldn't accept it.
Yeah.
So I was just like, so what the fuck is the point of getting it?
Yeah.
And he goes, to accept it. I was like, fuck you.
Oh shit! You might have
this
heard that. You might have heard my mind blow just right there.
I hated
bro.
it. I hated it.
Fuck, bro.
I would say though, like the ultimate goal is to realize that like we all are deserving of like feeling good about ourselves. We don't have to earn it. And I think that's like because we live in a capitalistic country, I think the idea that our world, the idea that we have to earn our value is like really ingrained into all that.
Pay our dues.
Yeah, and we do it in every way, like work, our bodies, exercise, whatever we're trying to be
Grind
good
at
at.
open
work.
mics, like go to 8 open mics a night, or you fucking
Exactly,
suck.
yeah.
You never make it in college.
Totally,
You
yeah.
never make it in this Portland where a hobbyist.
No, like I intentionally took the week off and was like in my head about it all week, you know, like not doing it. But yeah, so I think like the bigger lesson is like, yes, we can get confidence from feedback, but also like trying to find like a internal source of self-confidence that exists beyond how good or bad you are at something. Obviously, like being a good friend and shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Definitely.
I think that's like the bigger message there.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
too.
All right. Well, dope. We're going to take a real quick commercial break, and we don't do commercials. We're going to take a real quick
It'll be like
regular
2
break.
seconds.
Yep. Later, player. And welcome back to the Smoke Break. I'm your host, your old pal Zane, here with Zoe Schwartz,
Hello.
Taylor Barrett,
What's up?
and AC O'Neal.
Hi, guys.
So on this section, I wanted to talk about comparison because, you know, we were talking about like maybe seeing other comics and being like, oh my God, they're killing it, you know, but at the same time, it's like we have to compare ourselves to ourselves. Because it's like, if I compare myself to where I was 5 years ago, I'm doing infinitely better. If I compare myself to where I was at a year ago, I'm still doing infinitely better.
Yeah.
You know, like 2 years ago, I was in a psych ward. A year ago, I shaved off all my hair when I was in a psychosis. This year, I performed in a psychosis and have all of my hair. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
giving a round of
you.
applause
Thank
for that.
you.
Dude. The hair's looking luxurious
Thank
too.
you,
It's
thank
looking
you.
gorgeous.
I appreciate the positive affirmation.
Oh,
God.
Okay. All right.
All right. That's been the smoke break.
Yeah, it's not a St. Thomas show without a pun. Sneak over
Especially
in
one
there.
about his hair.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what about you? Like, what would you say that like you try to make a practice of like comparing yourself to yourself, or maybe you compare yourself to peers?
Yeah, you know, I try to definitely just compare myself to myself. It's hard though, because sometimes, you know, I remember like when I first started comedy and I had a bunch of momentum, and then the pandemic hit and it was like, fuck, dude,
A screeching halt.
yeah, everything went to a screeching halt, and I've never really recovered.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing like,
Define or covered.
you know, I mean, I was doing like 5 shows a month back then, and I was about to go on tour, and shit was going great. And you know, last year I was happy for doing 1 show a month, but
Sure.
you know, I do kind of I do sometimes look at my peers, and like some people don't get that. Some people aren't doing 1 show a month. Some people, you know, are doing 5 shows a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it does get kind of hard to like look at that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, like
you
in
know?
that example, it kind of sounds like in comparing yourself, it doesn't feel like you're doing as well as you were. And in comparing yourself to others, it doesn't feel like you're doing as well as they are.
Exactly. So I'm like, fuck, dude.
Probably stop comparing.
Yeah. I probably should just, you know, I should just have fun, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're right. Just stop comparing myself to what other people are doing, and just really lean into comedy, because that's why we started this thing, right? It's just to have fun. We have something to say. We all think we're funny, and just we have the balls to get up on stage and do it. So
Definitely.
I heard somewhere that somebody said it's never gonna go, like stand up specifically is never gonna go how you expect it to go. So just go without expectations.
Yeah.
And so I think what happens once you start being in the game for a little bit, you start having these expectations for like I remember when I rocked this shit 2 weeks ago, like I'm fucking about to come in here and crush this, and maybe it might not go as well this week as it did a couple weeks ago. So those expectations, like, it makes it a lot harder to keep coming back. You like it starts weighing on yourself. You start having that negative self-talk and stuff like that. So it's good to just.
I just thought of something. I thought of something that like somebody told me one time about that can like help with what you're talking about, which is like find like every time you go to an open mic, setting a goal of something that you're going to work on. So then that way it's not like a measuring stick of like every, you know, like a full gradient from where you were. It's just like each mic you have a goal. So it's like, I'm going to work on riffing, or I'm going to work on crowd work, or I'm going to work on trying to add new tags or writing on stage, or I'm going to work on saying, you know, less, or whatever.
Yeah,
you know
I don't
what I
know
mean?
if I
Like,
could do that.
yeah, or like
You know what I'm
holding
saying?
the mic a certain way, or like moving more or moving less, or whatever. Like just giving yourself your own little goal every time. And then that way every mic feels valuable, even if you bomb, because you're working on something specific that only you
Definitely.
know you're working on. I don't do that, but I think when you were saying that, it made me think that's a really good piece of advice.
That's totally correct. Especially like when the stage we're at, the most exposure to comedy that we have is, at least for me, is through open mics. Like I do way more open mics than I do shows.
Yeah.
So it's kind of easy to lose the value of it after a while. You're like, all these just performing in front of 3 bar regulars and then 15 other comics who are way more stressed out about their own sets to listen to what I have to say.
Yeah.
So it's not a really, I mean, it is comedy at a stage, but it's not comedy in its truest form, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like with comparison, like it can stop you from starting sometimes because you see somebody doing really well and you're like, well, I can't do that well. Why would I start? Taylor, what's been your experience with that?
Comparison specifically, or the
comparison to the point of like maybe not starting because of the comparisons that you're making?
Well, this feels like a call out.
It is.
That was a very direct,
specific question.
Like,
it is. You answer this one now, motherfucker.
No, not my
So I'll
turn.
get you next one.
I feel like the comparison kind of goes in both directions for me, where like I've seen people struggle and been like, I don't know if I want to experience that struggle. And then I've also seen people do very well, and that feels out of reach for me. And so like both ends of that can be a little bit of like self-doubt, and I can like fall into like the self-doubt category, and just it's weird wanting to build motivation to do that again, and or just at all. And but it's, I don't know, trying to find avenues to kind of like exercise those muscles a little bit has been really satisfying.
What do you think would motivate you more? Comparing yourself to somebody who's doing worse, or comparing yourself to somebody who's doing better that you think you could do as good as?
This is a really good question.
What would be worse or better?
Like what's more motivating? Seeing somebody who's like, they do so bad, you're like, I could do this, or seeing somebody do so well that you're like, I think I could like try, like I want to try for something like that.
I'd say in my experience, the latter has been more motivational when I see somebody doing good that it like that. And then seeing that also feels obtainable, then it's like, okay, like, yeah, let's get the fucking ball rolling. But usually when I see people do good, it's I get like a negative self-talk where it's like that doesn't feel obtainable. I rarely see things that are going good for people, and I'm like, oh, I could do that too. I'm just like, no, it'd probably get fucked up for me. And so
probably get fucked up for me. I like that.
And so it's hard to land on a spot of motivation to want to like try it sometimes. And like when I did do comedy, it was a really good experience. You know, I was I almost felt like I was like, all right, I did good. Let's fucking, I'm 1 for 1. Let's fucking call it here.
Definitely felt that.
Retire on top, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Go out on
You're like, I heard you were only good as your last set, so I'm never doing another one again. You're like,
So I had my last
tell
set.
everybody I'm a great comedian.
Yeah, exactly. No,
So how would you say you might relate to that, AC?
I feel like before I go on stage, I definitely like to see people do better, and then after I'm on stage, if somebody bombs, I'm like, oh, thank God.
That's so funny.
You're like, if they do it before, you're like, oh fuck, am I gonna bomb?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude. But when people are doing well before I go up, I'm like, this is a hot room. We're all gonna do great.
Yeah.
And then I go up and hopefully it goes well.
Yeah.
And then, obviously I don't want people to go to bomb.
But that is how the energy works, though.
yeah,
too.
Yeah.
dude. Like,
the energy.
I would rather they bomb after me than before me.
yes, for sure.
Because I had somebody bomb before me, and they're like, "You're next," and I was like, "Do I have to?"
Yeah, exactly. So I'm always like, and I feel like there's a kind of a thing with comedy where like you do really well, and then it kind of like it does so well that you like kill the energy for like people are too tired for the next guy to follow up.
Yeah.
So it does kind of feel good sometimes when like the person following you bombs a little bit. I'm just being real. I'm keeping it real on the smoke break.
Hey, listen, that's what we're here for.
Real.
No,
It feels kind of good. I'm like, oh yeah.
Or like when you see a really experienced person bomb, that always kind of, I mean, like I'm not happy for them that they're bombing, but it reminds me how everybody bombs.
It's humanizing.
And that when I bomb, I don't need to get so down on myself because I'm like, this person is undisputably a good fucking comedian.
Right.
So it's not that I'm like enjoying watching them. I mean, watching people bomb is uncomfortable no matter what.
For sure.
But it's a good reality check of how bombing is part of doing comedy.
It's very humanizing.
Even when, so.
Definitely.
That's how I see it.
So with comparisons, do you say that you compare yourself more to like when you're trying to compare yourself to yourself, do you compare yourself to like who you've been in the past or who you believe you could be in the future?
Another good
That's
question.
yeah, that is a good one.
Jesus
Damn,
Christ.
he's 2 for 2. He's cooking. He's cooking, ladies and gentlemen.
Let him cook.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Right? Because you have an idea. I feel like we all have our future self, like in our mind's eye, where we see ourselves. But I think also we don't forget our past selves. So it's like, it's weird. We're trying to chase for the future while the past is still like holding on to us.
Yeah, that's a good way of
You
talking
know what
about
I'm
it.
saying?
Definitely.
So
It's like, remember when you bought?
yeah. Don't forget McMinnville, bitch. They hated you.
Oh wait, you know what though? There's a podcast. Eric Andre has a podcast, and he asks comedians about the worst time they ever bombed.
Really?
Yeah, and it's fucking.
I'm gonna start.
Really
I'm gonna
entertaining.
start watching
Yeah.
that, dude. Because I mean, I was really
love
trying to
Eric
think about like worse bombs than that, and I can't really remember. Like, I've never had tomatoes or some shit thrown at me. Or, you know,
But that's only because they didn't have tomatoes.
Yeah, I'm sure if there's a farmer's market open at the time, they would have done it.
That's like on Sesame Street is the only time that happens.
Yeah.
Like, hey, whoa.
Whoa,
It's LML just
Waka,
dodging
waka,
shit.
waka.
It's a comedy club and a tomato farm.
They take one of those canes and pull you off the stage. with
Yeah.
a-
Oh, the hooks. And there's like a
You're all-
cloud of smoke behind you, and your top hat is still lingering.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you, Zoe? Like, do you feel like you make a comparison of who you were in the past, or like do you compare like who I could be in the future?
I think I definitely compare myself to the past more than the future, but I do think like watching more experienced people do things that you want to be part of or that you're doing is a good way to imagine what you could be like in the future. Like I've had people be like, this is like you in like 10 years of doing comedy. You know what I mean? Some really famous comic. I've had people's, and that was like a cool, like having, and also that whole thing of like having other people's, your peers' feedback. Like another comedian one time sent me a video and they were like, this is you in 10 years. And I was like, oh, that's how people see me.
Yeah.
And that's cool to think about how like, you know, because they probably have been doing it for like 15 years or something, you know? So I think probably I struggle with doing it too much. Well, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I probably do it too much in the other way. But I think it is, I'm glad you actually brought that up because I think that's a good way to think about it. Like comparisons in the sense of like what you know, what your goal is and comparing yourself to who you want to be in the future. It sounds like that would be more negative, but I feel like thinking about how I sucked in the past like keeps me in the past more. And I think thinking about what I could do in the future pushes me forward versus getting on stage and being like, remember the last time you bombed or like whatever, you know? So yeah, I think actually thanks for bringing that up because I think that's a good way to think about comparisons and the way to twist it and kind of make it.
And I think comparing yourself to what you see yourself as like in the future is very adjacent to like goal setting. Like if you see yourself like that, then you're like, okay, this is what I want to work towards.
Visualization.
Exactly. Yeah. You're manifesting that shit.
Yeah, totally. That's what I thought.
I feel like if you're imagining like a better future self, then you're also taking actions to become that future self.
Yeah,
You know, like if you're
you don't want to contradict that idea.
Exactly.
like, what does she do to be there? How can I do that?
What would cool me do?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, and like that sounds like kind of goofy, but like I at the same time, it's like I've definitely had moments where like I've been very resistant to maybe going out, but like I have to think of like what the version of me that wants the results I want would be doing in this situation.
That's a good point.
And
What would Blade do?
Exactly. It's way scarier though because I feel like when you're trying to chase that future self, it's all unknowns, and so you start relying on like memories of your past and like this is how I failed. I don't know if this is gonna work out for me. So I feel like it's hard, like that gets in your way sometimes, but it's a leap of faith. Yeah, like I'm sure you were terrified when you go out. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
As I am too. Sometimes I'm like, fuck. I do not want to talk to a single human being.
Exactly.
Today. I just want to stay in my room. But
It's like you have to imagine yourself in the future, but you know what the fuck you looked like in the past.
Yeah,
and so it's like, it's
but
more
you don't know.
abstract.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more abstract to think about who.
Yeah.
But I do think, like because of what Taylor said, I think I was coming to that too in my head that your like they say, there's so much power in like visualization and like imagining the end product and like picturing yourself succeeding at something before you go do something you're nervous about. So I think the idea of moving towards this ideal goal of yourself is probably really helpful and healthy.
I agree.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for wrapping that up with a nice little bow, Zoe. We are going to take a real quick break and be right back with the smoke break. And we are back with the smoke break. I'm your host, your old pal Zane, here with Zoe Schwartz.
Hello.
Taylor
I don't
Barrett?
know why I did that.
Hey.
Taylor Barrett.
Hey, hi.
Ac Oneal.
I'm doing finger guns too.
I didn't even do finger guns. because I did this.
Oh, number one.
I don't know what the fuck.
Do the white person finger wave?
Dancing, guys.
If you guys are watching the video, this is amazing. So,
Or dorky.
a little bit, but it's part of our values.
Yeah, exactly.
Which ties into our last thing. Not well, but it ties in.
Damn, you're good at that, Zane.
I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. So yeah, we want to talk about values. I feel like values are the thing that kind of keeps you going when the self-doubt and the comparison and the negative self-talk are, at their highest, at their worst. It's remembering why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like you have to remember like what's important to you, because you have to make that a priority to yourself, because anything that comes in between like you and your values, you can decide like, this is something that like I don't agree with. This is something that like I don't want to be a part of. So it's like I think that having that strong set of, why am I doing this is extremely motivating.
I wanted to ask, just like in general, all of us, like what are two of your values, Zane?
Two of my values. I have two values that are only two values. Everything else out the fucking window.
Everything else moot. I don't care.
Yeah. If I don't mention it. No, I would say that my two values that come to my head, two of my values would be connecting and helping other people feel connected.
That's good.
I feel like those are super important to me, because like the value of connection, the value of being able to talk to somebody and see things, to see that like I'm not alone in my thinking is incredibly important to me. But the idea of returning that to that person, of them also not feeling like they're alone in the way that they're feeling, like that's just all around, like whether I'm telling a joke, whether I'm writing a song, whether I'm doing peer support, like it's the idea is like, I felt alone and I don't want you to feel that. So what about you? What would be two values of yours, AC? And then we'll come back to Taylor.
Whoa!
I pointed to him. I know.
Misdirection.
Yeah. For two of your values.
Yeah. I would say respect is definitely one of my bigger values, especially in comedy, where it can get so disrespectful and people think that being disrespectful is a form of comedy. And I try to strive to be the change where it's like I can still be funny and respect everybody in the room.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Definitely.
I don't need to use these jokes that disrespect other people.
Thank you.
No punching down.
Exactly. I don't need to punch down to be funny. I don't need,
I don't need you to look bad for me to look good.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good phrase.
I try to tell people like you can be funny without being mean. Like it's very possible.
Yeah.
It's hard, but
And
Zoe.
well,
no, I'm kidding. It's mostly being mean to myself.
see, yeah, that's how I get around it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a loophole.
Yeah, there's loopholes.
But no one's here to defend me. So no one said you can't punch down on yourself.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So respect is a big
the
one.
first one, and something I'm always working on too is this integrity. Just making sure that I am who I say I am, and trying to be the change and be example of the change, and in the wise words of one Michael Jackson, starting with the man in the mirror. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm trying to help him change his ways.
Yeah, definitely.
So just trying to constantly be a better person, and
making sure that you're being respectful. So
exactly,
making sure that you're being honest and making sure that you're being respectful.
Those are two huge values.
Huge values. Yeah, very much important. What about you, Taylor? What would you say yours lie?
I think two of my most like guiding values are like patience and like a willingness to problem solve. And I think that those two kind of like tie into each other pretty frequently, but those two things just like mean a lot to me, and those two things that I try to offer to kind of like everybody around me. And I think I probably need to work on patience more than I need to work on problem solving, because sometimes I can get so desperate to problem solve that I become impatient, and that can contradict it. But that's me trying to be a little more honest about that. But like even if somebody isn't great at either of those things, I think just like showing either of those things, preferably both, but showing either of those things just like means so much to me. Showing a willingness to problem solve, and also like just a level of patience for a situation. If somebody like needs to find their words, or if somebody needs to like cool off for a second, and then also like being willing to like have a conversation or like take steps to solve a problem. They're so important to me, and those are things that I look for in just kind of everybody around me, and things that I like hope to display as effectively as possible.
Yeah, definitely.
What about you, Zoe?
I feel like I had one and then I thought of another one and then I feel like it slipped out of my brain. But the first one I was thinking about was community. Like I feel like
that's good.
We like just we're community oriented like beings. Like our brains develop based on like interacting with other people. That's why like so important like with the kids to like engage with them. And
it takes a village.
Yeah. So I think community is like probably one of my biggest values. And then I think I was thinking about like equity or like equality, but I think the best way to kind of really like more approach that is like self-awareness, like being aware of yourself, being aware of how you affect other people. Yeah, I mean, I have other like really important values, but I think those are the two I was trying to think
that come to mind,
and that didn't weren't like me too. I mean, even though you kind of said community too, but I think those are really important. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So, how do your values like motivate you to move forward?
Well, I think with self-awareness, I think it motivates me to like check myself and be honest with myself, because it can be like the way you're being to other people, but also like as far as the way we talk to ourselves or like the habits or the routines that we're engaging in to like live up to our potential and to be happy. And like I think there's a lot of things that we have to do in order to be happy that like being self-aware gives you the information you need to like adjust.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that's probably how I think that one. And then community is just like, we've talked about a bunch of stuff, but like it reflects back to you. I mean, similar, you can get self-awareness from being in community, but I also think like we need community to like survive. So I think being around other people is really like fills up my cup and like appreciating the people that appreciate me and all that.
Yeah. What about you, AC? How do your values motivate you forward?
I just, what I want is, because it helps me move forward because I want to see a comic like me succeed, right? Like I want to see a comic who doesn't need to punch down to sell tickets, who doesn't, I mean, obviously there are comics out there that do it, but I want to see more of them. And see them become more successful and become bigger and better. And,
You kind of want to be like that social proof that like you can be a good person, you can be nice, and you can still be funny.
Exactly. You don't have to just exactly. I want to be the proof. Exactly.
Yeah,
that reminds me a lot of like I've heard a lot of bands that came up with like a weird like new style like Primus type of shit where it's like no one's really doing stuff like that and they just were totally willing to get weird. Where they just they made that kind of music because they wanted to hear that kind of music. And so I really like the idea of being like, well, I want to see this out there, so I'm going to put this out there.
Exactly.
I think some of the best arts gets created like that, like wanting representation for different communities and stuff like that. I think about that's
well, I mean, I guess the way that like I relate to your idea of that is like for me it's like I never saw the hip hop that I create being created. Like I saw it maybe in like small ways, and maybe like my favorite artist did one song that was kind of like that, but I was just like, well, I mean, if that's the thing that I'm really connecting with and I wish there was another song like that, like I'm going to have to be the dude to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm gonna make 4.
I'm gonna make 4 songs like that and find out why they only made 1.
Right. Like, so this is why.
It was overkill apparently. Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely something that I work on. You know, it's hard because especially in today's world where you have to put out so much content and we consume so much content. I feel like that's, it's easy to compare yourself to those people too, as much as it is anybody on stage. I know we've talked a lot about stand up.
Yeah.
But you compare yourself. I compare myself to, Desi Banks and DC Young Fly and all these other big people. They're like maybe 2 years older than me, if that. There's people coming up younger than me. Kai Cenat, multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
He's 18, 19, maybe he's 20 right? I'm 20 motherfucking 8. It's just, you know what I'm saying?
Is my time over?
Yeah, exactly. Like, am I old, man? Am I too old for this shit?
Yep.
But it's so...
If you're too old, then I should be retired.
Exactly.
No, but I mean...
exactly. I'm just kidding.
No.
He's all, Zoe, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think like, like kind of just to draw like that age comparison thing where we say like, oh, somebody this age is doing it, like, is there any place, for me? But I think that's where it kind of ties back around to the values where it's just like, well, am I facilitating a space where somebody like me would be able to have the opportunity to like believe that they can be something? Like I think that's like just knowing why you're doing it.
Yeah.
What about you, Taylor? How would you say your values kind of motivate you to go forward?
They definitely make me want to be better at both of those things. And I think that being patient and willing to problem solve can just like branch out into like so many other things. Like being patient with yourself and being willing to problem solve on, the things that you want to get better on. Like that can compound so effectively into just like wanting to do more and be better at the more things that you do. And so I really like the idea of both those things, just like
I feel like you have to be patient to problem solve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it all kind of
they go together.
They totally do. Because I've definitely rushed some things and just been like, fuck it, it'll work out fine. And then of course it doesn't. Like, what do you know is going to happen? Yeah.
I put zero thought into this. And it came out like I put zero thought into it. What do you know?
Or I put like 2 thoughts into it, but I did it. If I had just put that third thought, it would have been so much better.
You know what? Something I thought of that kind of like I feel like kind of overarches yours is like the idea of like being curious, because I feel like if you're curious about things, then it gives you the ability to see them from more angles, which you have to be patient to be curious, right? Because we usually jump to like a judgment, but like being intentionally curious forces you to be patient, and then being curious is part of what makes you good at problem solving, is being able to think about things from multiple angles.
Definitely. I've heard people say that they like operate from a standpoint of curiosity, especially in like mental health work when they're trying to like understand somebody's problems, or they're trying to understand what that would look like in, like 5 years after they develop. Like the operating from a standpoint of curiosity really allows you to like understand somebody from their level and like get into their like inner machinations, you know what I mean? And that it just helps you understand so much more, and like the willingness to be curious just like feeds you so much information that you wouldn't have.
Yeah, it's like being open-minded.
Yeah, absolutely.
It promotes being open-minded, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
What about you, Zane? Your turn.
My turn. So how do my values guide and motivate me? I would say my desire to connect. I would say that motivates me just because I think that it gives me like the patience and the understanding and the problem solving, because it's like I feel like those are things that people don't get in certain situations. Connection and like understanding are things that like a lot of people, let's take drug addicts for example, or let's just say people who use substances. People just look, oh, it's a drug addict, they're worthless, they're da-da-da. It's like I want to give them more time than that, because like I know what it's like to only be given like a first look, and then people be like, this is who you are, this is how it is, and to completely be like disconnected from where it's like, I don't know, like I heard this one rap lyric where it was just like, all I needed was a little piece of love, but I couldn't find it in people, so I would seek it in drugs. And I was like, to understand that like most people,
Con?
It is Con,
motherfucker.
Yeah, it's a fucking good ass line. I tear up every time I listen to that song. But I just that idea that like with a little bit of extra connection, somebody could feel understood, and like them not feeling understood might be the reason why they've gone so far astray. So it's like to offer what I feel like maybe I haven't received in certain moments is important to me. And I would say that like helping people feel connected, it motivates me because it's like I know what that connection does. I know what it felt like when people did try to connect with me. I know what it felt like when people did validate me.
Like how much you appreciated it.
Exactly.
That
it's like, how do I return that?
That's a completely real concept in like the conversation with addiction. Like I heard a phrase one time that was like a lot of people assume that the opposite of addiction is sobriety, but that we're trying to change the conversation to understand that the opposite of addiction is community. And that resonated so hard with me.
Yeah. Well, it's like that rat park experiment, where they like put the rat in there and they're just like, here's good water, here's clean water, and here's drug water, and they just put him in a cage and they're like, well, look at him, he's just doing drugs. And it's like he also had nothing else to do.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's like if the only place you find community is within those drugs, of course that's where you're gonna turn. Because I mean, drugs do build a huge community of people. I
Absolutely.
know a lot of people who I only hung out with to smoke weed.
Exactly.
That's it. And then once I would take a break from smoking weed, I wouldn't see them around anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like I feel like we seek that community, we seek that understanding from like wherever we can kind of find it. But like ultimately, I think that like connection is just super important, and it's kind of like a baseline for us just feeling like our needs are being met.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. Well, AC, thank you so much for joining
thank you
us
so
for the
much.
show.
Thanks
It was
for
such a
having me.
fucking treat having you. It was great talking with you.
Appreciate
We appreciate you a lot.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
Appreciate you all.
that has been the Smoke Break. We will see you next time.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
all of you.
Yes.
Especially you.
Especially you.
Especially you.
Later, players.